Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Daniel. I'm from Group 8. Alongside with me, I do have my classmates Don, Sheikh, Dania, and Kabir. And today we'll be presenting on our assigned topic, wage inequality in Singapore. Um, on our assigned topic, it's basically to explain what factors causes wage inequality, i.e. the differences between the highly and lowly paid workers in Singapore, and what can be done about this. Based on our scope, this will be the flow of our presentation today. First of all, we'll be presenting on the wages in perspective of the employees, employers, and government. What factors affects wage inequality, the wage inequality situation in Singapore, and what are some of our recommendation on what can be done, and the government's role in tracking wage inequality as well. So, on a perspective of three different point of view, wages is basically the definition. The definition of wages is a monetary measure corresponding to the work of employees. So, it's basically an amount paid to employees for their work service being done. As an employee, wages is an essential source of income to achieve the living standard that they desire. On the employer's side of view, it's basically a cost that they would wish to minimize so that they can expand their profit wider. On the government's point of view, wages is basically the foundation to earn revenue through tax collection, which in our sense in Singapore, it's basically our income tax. So wages as and resources, there are basically two perspectives. One, it's based on individual like us. So as an individual like us, wages affects our choice or selection of our occupation. As a company, it influences where organizations will set up their operations as options of low labor costs are now widely available. And with that, I'll pass on the stage to Kabir to talk about factors affecting wage inequality.
Thank you, Daniel. Wage inequality refers to the income difference between low and high paid Singapore residences. Wage inequality causes differences among the residents of Singapore, and it is mostly caused by globalization, the open nature of the Singapore economy, skill-based pay, lack of minimum wage, and many other factors. Like many other countries, Singapore has embarked on a journey of rapid economic development since 1965, after acquiring its independence and breaking away from Malaysia. The development that the country has experienced has created a rift within the country, creating a group of rich and poor. The factors that are affecting the Singaporeans are the lack of minimum wage. The less skilled are suffering from the lack of minimum wage, and the rift is enhanced by having people with high skills benefit more uh, from the skill-based payment scheme in Singapore. The less skilled therefore get very little based on the jobs carried out, and both parties must align on the definition of total wage compensation. The open nature of the Singapore economy increases the chance of foreign trade, foreign investments, and foreign products in Singapore, which ensures that only a few people manage to effectively navigate the market and remain rich, which widens the inequality gap. Globalization led to the knowledge-based economics, which causes a decline in unskilled and semi-skilled workers. Being paid less as compared to their fellow Singaporean colleagues, it helped to keep the wage in these industries to remain competitive. Skill-based pay. The employers have the power to decide on what to pay based on the skills that they want. Those with little or to no skills have no pay, which leads them to remaining poor. Employers not being able to maintain wage competitiveness when the required skills change due to operational needs. As for the government involvement, adoption of the flexible wage system indicates the role of the government in the wage inequality. The government plays a significant role in creating the high and low payment systems, and the government has adopted wage systems that reduce payment for the low skilled and increase those for the high skilled to retain them. One of the significant reasons for inequality in Singapore is the tendency of importing foreign workers by Ministry of Manpower to work in the country. This practice widens the income gap among Singaporeans, which could be used to explain the inequality. Moreover, the tendency of Singaporean citizens to categorize its citizens based on the socio-economic factors such as wealth, income, race, and education has greatly led to the increase in gap between the rich and the poor. I'll now hand the slides over to Sheikh.
Thank you, Kabir. So now I'll be telling you more about wage inequality in Singapore. Do you all know that in 2020, Singapore has a record for the narrowest income inequality in 20 years? And what this means is that there's a lesser gap between those with higher and lower incomes. And this is due to the government's efforts in making this social inequality a priority. And because of this, the government has chosen to ramp up the efforts to boost the income of lower wage workers. Since we already talked about the positives, let's talk about the negatives of wage inequality. So, main cause of that is actually globalization, which led to the reduction of unskilled or semi-skilled workers. And basically, globalization led to the knowledge-based economics and caused a decline in these unskilled and semi-skilled workers. And as a result, they are being paid less as compared to their other Singaporean colleagues. And helping this is because it helps them keep wage in these industries competitive. Besides globalization, we can talk also about the foreign workers policy in Singapore. So expats coming into Singapore are drawing expat salary and causing a spillover effect on raising the total wage package for these expats as compared to the local counterparts. And with that, I'll pass my time to Don.
Thank you, Sheikh. So what can be done to mitigate the issue on wage inequality? The team had identified 5 possible strategies to tackle the issue. The minimum wage is an essential element of public policy to reduce poverty and inequality. By depending on the inflation in the economy, the minimum wage can be calibrated accordingly, and as such, it will help to reduce income gap between the poor and the rich. However, in 2020, the NTUC Secretary General, Mr. Koh Poh Koon, expressed that the idea of minimum wage may provide more harm than good for businesses and workers. Therefore, Singapore does not impose a mandatory implementation of the minimum wage, but focuses on paying the workers appropriately. Singapore recognizes the problem of wage inequality in the country. Therefore, it rolled out various initiatives to provide opportunities for the workers to be accorded higher wages. The first initiative is Progressive Wage Model. It helps to increase the wages of workers through upgrading skills and improving productivity. It is implemented via government levers in the cleaning, security, and landscape sectors. The PWM covers all Singapore citizens and Singapore permanent residents working in these 3 sectors. The second initiative is Workforce Income Supplement Scheme. The WIS encourages eligible workers to work and build up their CPF savings for their retirement, housing, and healthcare needs by supplementing their income and retirement savings through cash payments and CPF contributions. You will receive 40% of your WIS payment in cash and 60% in CPF contributions every month from the government. The maximum annual WIS increases based on the age and has changed from 2018 to 2020. The third initiative is training programs. An example will be Skills Future initiatives. In a modern world that values human capital and talent development, Skills Future SG was introduced to promote the lifelong learners concept and ensure they are equipped to face the challenges in a globalized world. It also helps to introduce subsidies such as Mid-Career Enhanced Subsidy and workshop credits to help low-paid workers in embracing lifelong learning without incurring heavy financial debts to improve themselves. The establishment of labor unions aim to provide better working conditions and promote better well-being for society in general. This can be done by tackling workers' problems and developing strategies to enhance the lives of workers and the people around them. Other than home, workers spend most of their time at work. Therefore, the help of union allows workers to have more opportunities to stand together and fight for better overall working conditions. In worldwide, it was viewed as a form of human rights for workers to stand together and bargain collectively. The progressive tax system helped to reduce wage inequality by taxing the individuals who earn more with a higher tax rate, while those who make lesser with a lower tax rate. In Singapore, it adopted the progressive tax system and had aimed to tackle the issue of wage inequality between the different classes of Singaporeans. There should be a need to recognize that low-income earning workers require more help in their education and skill sets upgrading. Therefore, there is a need for this group of workers to gain more access to such opportunities by making education and courses more affordable. This then helps to increase the social mobility as they become more independent on achieving their desired needs despite challenging social circumstances. Being an individual with enhanced education and skill sets can command a higher salary, creating more job opportunities through entrepreneurship, which can aid in narrowing down their income gap. In addition, it can allow for better quality and element of human capital to boost the level of productivity. Through the government's timely intervention to ensure fair employment practices, it can help influence and control the employers to strictly adhere to the regulations on employment practices for appropriate treatment of employees. The regulations in place reduce the probability of discrimination at workplace, as the minorities may be accorded with lower than average wages and suboptimal overall compensation package. With little discrimination happening at the workplace, it allows employers to be benefited in multiple ways. Firstly, the employers can gain access to a broader pool of applicants to choose from, which will allow the best workers to be hired based on the skill sets they have and do not because of their demographic factors affects the hiring process. Secondly, with the best pool of workers it has in the organization, it can ensure survivability due to maintaining a competitive edge over its competitors. Now, I'll hand over the time to Dania.
Thank you, Don. So I'll be handling a part on government's role in tackling wage inequality. Tripartism in Singapore refers to the collaboration among unions, employers, and the government. Tripartite partners in Singapore are the Ministry of Manpower, MOM, National Trades Union Congress, NTUC, and Singapore National Employers Federation. So how has the government helped with wage inequality? Singapore's government have led policies to improve incomes through programs such as Workfare Income Supplement, such as WIS since the mid-2000s. They have come up with skills training through Skills Future movement back in 2016. The government has also put in measures that provide subsidized public housing, education, and health. Medifunds are set up to help the low-income families be able to afford their medical bills, and these measures help with the lower income group so that they are able to maintain a minimum standard of living. There is also a list of programs subsidized by Workforce Development Agency for approved training courses, as well as bonus payments when training under the Workfare Training Supplement Scheme. This way, those who fall in the lower income group are able to upgrade themselves in the employment market. Moving on to the unionization in Singapore. National Trades Union Congress, known as the NTC, helps in developing industrial relations system and trade unionism, which aims to boost productivity and profits. NTUC spearheaded a progressive wage model, which is a way to increase wages of workers through upgrading their skills and improving productivity. This was exercised incrementally in targeted sectors before expanding to the other sectors. It gave NTC time to work with tripartite partners to iron out implementation issues and bring businesses on board before wage requirements were legislated. Unions also help with fighting for employees' rights in wage inequality and other factors related to employment practices. Moving on to tripartism. As mentioned, tripartism in Singapore is a collaboration between unions, employers, and government. The strong tripartism in Singapore provides a competitive edge for the workforce as it strengthens the competitiveness of its economy, harmonious relationship between employers and employees. Various focus areas for the tripartite community. These focus areas are job creation, training upgrading workforce, flexible wage system, and fair and progressive employment practices as mentioned in the MOM website. The existence of tripartism helps with regulation of wages and also puts into place a flexible wage system that could respond with economic circumstances. In 2012, the National Wage former chairman, Professor Lim Chong Yah, proposed those who are earning less than 1,500 per month an increment of 50% over the 3 years. This shows that there is plans in place which helps with wage equality in Singapore. So I'll pass the time over to Kabe.
Thank you, Dania. Our recommendations are enhanced participation of labor unions to advocate for workers and participate in governmental policy-making process. Due to the vast difference in wage, employers have been known to misuse their employees. As such, the involvement of labor union leaders in the policy-making process would enable the needs of Singaporean workers to bridge the inequality gap, as well as having better benefits for their employees and their families, as well as government regulating fair employment practices. The policy-making process is very crucial in the Singapore government. To bridge the gap between the rich and the poor, the government should continuously regulate the fair employment practices which companies would need to adhere to, such as sending their employees for training, having equality, and having reasonable terms and conditions. In conclusion, wage inequality creates differences that require focused efforts to narrow the gap between high paid and low paid employees. There are collaborations between the trade unions, employers, and the government to solve the wage inequality problems. There is an indication that Singapore has been faithfully committed to reducing wage inequality by adopting a tripartite system and many other approaches. And these are the references that we have. Thank you for your time.